Hello, welcome to this evening's virtual event with Brookline Booksmith, featuring the remarkable Katherine Applegate, speaking with John Schu of Mr. Schu Reads about Katherine's brand new book, Willowdean. My name is Alex Schaffner, and I'm the events director at Brookline Booksmith in Brookline, Massachusetts. You might know us well, you might not know us at all. Thank you so much for making us part of your family today and for being part of our community tonight. I want to say thank you very much to John Schu for being the moderator for tonight's event. Mr. Schu has helped a lot of people of all ages find incredible books that are perfect for them and discover the joy in reading for yourself. Thank you so much for being here. Tonight, I am super excited to welcome our guest author, who is really one of a kind. A lot of you who are watching and listening probably know Katherine's books like The One and Only Ivan, The One and Only Bob, Crenshaw, The Wish Tree, and the Endlings books. Some of you who grew up in the same century I did probably know her best for the Animorphs books or a terrifying little series called Everworld. No matter how you know Katherine Applegate's books, however, one thing is for sure. Once you pick one of them up, you won't be able to think about anything else until you're finished. And once you've read one of her books, you're always hungry for the next. Why is that? It's because she always makes every character in her stories important and gives them every feeling that it's possible to feel. It's because you always forget where you are in the real world when you start reading one of her books. It's because she can write the saddest or scariest story in the world, but when she wants you to laugh, you're going to laugh. It's because she writes about the most interesting creatures and the most interesting places, and because her plots will make you hold your breath until the very last page. Not only that, but I bet a lot of you have copies of Katherine's books that are falling into little itty bitty pieces because you can't stop rereading them. Does that make you a bad book owner? No. It just means they're really good books. Tonight, Katherine is going to talk about her new book, Willowdean, about a girl who loves every part of her natural world, even the parts everyone else hates. You'll meet creatures you've never heard of and a girl you'd love to know. And even though this world isn't exactly like ours, you're going to feel right at home there. I'm so excited for Katherine to share more about this wonderful book. So please welcome Katherine Applegate and John Schu.
Thank you, Alex.
Oh.
Katherine, that was the most beautiful introduction of you I've ever heard. Let's give Alex a big round of applause. I was trying not to cry during it.
I was going to say the same thing, like, wow, checks in the mail, Alex.
That was truly, as Mary Van Aken just said, that was truly beautiful. So Katherine, today you are celebrating a book birthday. So yes. Happy book birthday to Willowdean. And I wonder, Katherine, how do you feel when you wake up in the morning on your book birthday days?
Usually a little nervous because I have to do these. And, you know, I'm a writer, not a presenter by trade. But what the best part, I think, when you write a book is the moment when you open a box and there the book is, and you touch it and hold it and hug it. And as it happens,
smell it.
Smell it, of course, smell it. My books are a little late because of all the weirdness with the mail right now. So I'm really looking forward to that moment.
Oh, I feel guilty that I have one, but you're gonna have one. Maybe it will come soon because during the introduction, a UPS truck pulled up to my house, and I bet they were actually delivering more copies of Willowdean for me. So I can always share one with you. So I will never forget the first time I saw this cover. I did the cover reveal for it. So I received it in my email inbox maybe a week before it was shared with the world. And I'm wondering, how did your heart feel the first time you saw this beautiful, stunning, miraculous cover?
Charles Santoso is brilliant. He did the Wish Tree cover too, which I absolutely loved. He just has this magical way, yes, with animals. And especially because in Willowdean, we're dealing with invented species. It's especially amazing.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Oh, there it is. So we had... There were a bunch of sketches he shared with everybody, and we were looking them over, you know, as possible covers. And when we got to that one, everybody said, oh, yeah, because it just leaps off the shelves at you and perfectly captures the two central species in this story. It's kind of an eco mystery, and there they are, a screecher and a hummingbird.
So that's, you're segueing beautifully, and I think you have a visitor. Oh, there's the book.
Oh my gosh! That is absolutely,
he just brought it in.
That was my husband. Oh, that, I swear that was not planned. That's absolutely amazing. Oh, it's beautiful. It's still warm. It's been out in the sun. Oh, okay.
So now you, all right, so now you need to go through all the, you need to hug it. Give it a big hug, Katherine. And then, since this is your first time seeing it, feel how it's embossed. It feels so nice across. And then the
smells good.
Is, so,
Bubby.
Look at it.
This is the moment. This is the moment. It's just, it's this little idea floating around in your brain, and then suddenly, not so suddenly, it's this. I mean, and it's a reminder that so many people are involved in making a book. It really does take a village. I mean, the designers and the art director and the editors, and just getting the book from place one to Brookline Booksmith. I mean, there's so many things involved.
And that you were captured on camera receiving it. That is could not have been planned better. Oh everyone, gosh. Let's give Katherine a big round of applause.
I'm so happy. It's so pretty.
I'm so happy for you. Okay, so now I have to get back to my questions, which is related to the cover. So Katherine, can you take us on a tour of the cover?
Well, now I can, yes. This, well, you have to start with the big purple guy there. That is a screecher. And the little guy there is a hummingbird, and I know we'll talk about them more in a minute. You can see him. I love that the little hummingbird makes an appearance on the spine too. And then the back wraps around to this beautiful scene of glowing trees. But those trees aren't just glowing. There's a lot more to it than that. And just, the interior illustrations are every bit as charming.
Oh, they're we're sharing again. Can you read the tagline on the back for us?
I absolutely can. The earth is old and we are not, and that is all you must remember.
I'm sure you've met many people that have tattoos inspired by Katherine Applegate characters and quotes. And when I read that, I said, I don't have any tattoos, but I said to myself, that would be a really nice quote as a tattoo. So maybe one day someone will do that. But I agree, the art is just so gorgeous, and his heart is so kind and so capacious. And I love following him online and everything he does when he illustrates other people's books as well as his own. So if you're not following Charles, everyone out there, please do so and pick up all of his books.
Oh, he's just brilliant. He's just brilliant.
So now, will you tell us more about the characters? You could start by telling us how they first entered your brain, how you created them, how you visualized them, how they came to you.
Well, the funny thing about this particular book, and all books have weird catalysts, but for me, the start of this book had to do with coyotes, because I live in Los Angeles and we have more than our share of urban coyotes, and many people are not happy about it. I'm on the pro coyote side. I think it's fantastic that we can live in this incredibly urban, chaotic environment and have all these magnificent species. I looked out this afternoon and I saw a red-tailed hawk, and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. But coyotes are kind of an issue when you have small pets, because they happen to eat them. So we have had to learn to compromise. We had a den of coyote pups right next to us, and we had ended up making what they call around here a catio, a cat patio, so the cats can go through the kitchen in a hole and be outside, but not be as vulnerable. And that kind of accommodation started me thinking about biodiversity and the ways that we all interact and affect each other. And then, of course, I wanted to talk about climate change, because it is very much upon us.
Oh, thank you, Katherine. Thank you. Like, when I've been book talking this to teachers and librarians, that's what I've been focusing on. That I think this is going to inspire so many kids to look at our environment differently and to take care of be more inspired to take care of our planet. And you do that with all of your books, as Alex said, where when you finish reading a Katherine Applegate book, I think your heart is filled with more compassion. And when it's filled with more compassion, you take more action. So thank you for putting another book into the world that's going to inspire so many people to do that. As you know, Katherine, I love reading aloud. There is not a better way, I believe, to connect with people than by reading aloud. And I was wondering if you would be up for reading aloud to all of us this afternoon and this evening on Willowdean's book birthday.
This is so funny because I have my printout ready since I assumed I was bookless, but look, I can read from the actual book.
For the first time.
Oh, wow. I think the dedication to this particular book it's the first time I've opened a book with an apology. It reads, "For Mother Earth, thanks for putting up with us." And it's followed by an epigraph from Greta Thunberg, the amazing Swedish climate activist who at such a young age really galvanized a generation to think about climate change. And it's a very simple quote. "I have learned you are never too small to make a difference." And I think if there's one takeaway from this book, I hope that's it. That yes, there are things we can do. Do not lose hope. Have, honest hope. So this begins there are some sections in this that are written from a different point of view. So I'm going to start with that and then just read a little bit of the first chapter. "The little creature appears late one afternoon on an old carousel in the village of Perchance. She's propped, dazed and damp as a newborn, on the saddle of a wooden unicorn. She blinks, then blinks some more. She makes a noise, a sort of squeaky growl. Her breath comes and goes in tiny gasps and sighs. Her furry paws move when she tells them to. Her head turns this way and that. She seems to be in fine condition. But where is she? And more importantly, why is she? She pats the neck of her lifeless steed. Perhaps she should wait here. Yes, that might be the best thing to do under the circumstances. She does not know herself well yet, but she seems to be a patient sort, and patience, she suspects, might serve her well, might even save her life. The creature has a maker, a boy with nimble fingers and a tender heart. He spent hours weaving weeds and thistledown in the milky moonlight, spinning her into existence. She has a friend as well, a girl with sharp eyes and a stubborn soul. And though the girl is young, she understands things that others do not. The creature on her wooden horse knows none of this, not yet. She does know all at once and with great certainty that she is quite alive and quite alone. And the first chapter is very, very short. I will just read it because it's a half a page.
Oh, I'm so glad, because I didn't think you were going to. And if anybody has Zoomed with me over the last week, I read them the first chapter aloud. So thank you for continuing to go. I was going to ask you to please read the first chapter.
It just reads, well, once upon a time when stones were soft and stars were bits of dust, I loved a monster. It seems forever ago, and perhaps it was, though things weren't really so different. True, magic was gentle then and plentiful, but it's always there if you know where to look. The moon, after all, still smiles from time to time, and the world still spins like a dancer through the skies. In any case, the whens and wheres don't much matter. The earth is old, and we are not, and that is all you must remember.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I want you to keep reading, but everyone out there, you're going to get your copy today, I hope, or sometime this week, and maybe you'll read it aloud to a friend or a family member, or as a teacher, you'll read it aloud to your class. And I cannot wait to read online on Twitter and other places how all of your students and family members are responding to this beautiful, important, and timely book. And I love to give rounds of applause. So can we give Katherine yet another round of applause? So Katherine, do you have any read aloud memories from when you were a child, either from a family member reading aloud to you, or a teacher reading aloud to you, or a sibling reading aloud to you that you would like to share with us today?
Oh, it was Mrs. Gray in third grade reading Charlotte's Web. I really didn't like to read. And when I do school visits, I always admit this. And I, the teachers are always like, oh, great, that's all we need. But I think it's very reassuring for kids who are reluctant to know that you got to find the right book. You got to find the best friend book. And for me, that was the moment.
And was there a certain scene in Charlotte's Web? Was it the way that your teacher read aloud? Was it a character that spoke to your heart?
Oh, I loved Wilbur's vulnerability, I think, and comic his silly moments. But I think it was, strangely enough, the heartbreak of it, to realize that you could get so engrossed in a story that you actually were moved to tears. I didn't know that was possible. It's really life-changing when you realize what fiction can do for you. There's this quote I love. It's Jean Rhys, I think. Reading makes immigrants of us all. And I think that's so true. It takes you somewhere else.
And the question I just asked you, I ask people all of the time. And the book that the most people respond with is Charlotte's Web. And so I'm always interested to know more. And I always remember K.H.D. Camillo talks about that she didn't read until she was 30 because the cover terrified her. And I've heard that from so many other people as well, that it's kind of like divided. Either you didn't read it till you were an adult because you were scared of the cover, or a teacher or a family member read it aloud to you. For me, Katherine, it was Miss Valinder in the second grade. When I was in the second grade, Miss Valinder read aloud Charlotte's Web. And it was the first time I saw a teacher cry. And that really spoke to my heart, that my teacher wasn't crying because she was upset with us or she was having a bad day, but she was crying because of a story that was bringing us together as a class. And it always reminds me why it's so important every single school day to read aloud. And as I've traveled pre-COVID around the country, so many librarians and teachers would come up to me at the end of a presentation and say, I'm actually considering leaving teaching because my principal says that reading aloud is something you shouldn't be doing, that you're reading aloud too much. And I feel like in that moment, I would say, well, I give you permission. It's the best and the most important part of the day. And I can see many people in the chat are sharing when they read aloud the one and only Ivan to their students and how that connected all of us. So thank you for sharing your memory. And I didn't know yours was also Charlotte's Web.
I know Kate thinks that Charlotte's Web was written just for her, but it was written just for me.
Well, actually, I have her forthcoming book.
Oh, I can't wait to read that.
Weeks, yes. Yeah. Have you read it yet?
No, I'm so
I'm
excited.
Skipping all over now, but let's give Kate some more love. So Beatrice Prophecy comes out in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And can I read aloud a passage to you, Katherine? And to everybody here with us? All right, so first of all, when I read a K.H.D. Camillo book for the first time, or Katherine Applegate book for the first time, I know there's going to be such sentence level writing that is going to change me as a human being. And you're both really wonderful at having refrains and phrases that you come back to. And in this book, the Beatrice Prophecy, which reminds me of the miraculous journey of Edward Tulane, this is the passage that I would like to read aloud. We shall all in the end be led to where we belong. We shall all in the end find our way home. And I'll read that one more time. We shall all in the end be led to where we belong. We shall all in the end find our way home. And I think so many of us, Katherine, we find our way home through story, particularly, Katherine, Applegate story. So thank you for allowing me to read aloud. So let's talk now, because I did not plan on doing a Kate DiCamillo segment.
Well, I want, since we're pitching books, and I know John has no idea I'm going to even mention this, but I just happened to write the foreword to an exquisitely beautiful and unbelievably important book that every educator and parent is going to want to read. And it's called The Gift of Story by a certain Mr. John Schu. And it is absolutely beautiful. And the whole point of it is the affective side of reading, the way that it changes us emotionally. And I read it and I felt different as a writer after I read it. So I can't recommend it enough. I don't know. When does it come out, John?
It comes out, well, because of shipping issues and printing issues, I have no idea, but this is what it looks like right now.
Oh, it's absolutely so moving.
I'm sweating hearing you talk about it, because there's only one other person who's read it, and that's my editor. And sending it to you was absolutely terrifying. And when you emailed me the foreword last week, I just sat there like sobbing uncontrollably. So thank you, Katherine, for writing that and for inspiring. Like the first chapter is all about Katherine Applegate.
You can skip that one.
No. All right, so let's focus now. So let's talk about some process questions. So when did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
Oh,
I know that's a big question.
I was essentially middle-aged. I mean, I think I liked secretly writing, and I think I became a writer. I think you become a writer the minute you write or tell your first story. I don't think, kids are so obsessed with publishing these days. And I always tell them, I have them raise their hand. Have you ever told a story? Have you ever written a story? Have you ever thought of a story in your head? Then you're a writer. It's, the publishing is really fun, but it's about being able to tell a tale. And that can really change your life and change other people's lives. So the first story I remember writing, I was in 4th grade, and it was about a pig named Alice, and because animals even then. But I didn't really start publishing seriously until I was in my late 30s, because I was chicken. I got a degree in English, and I just could not bear the idea of publicly failing like that. It just seemed so terrifying. So it's not a career path I recommend.
Oh no! Well, I'm so grateful that you took it. So I have a question that I've been thinking about a lot, and it's the first time I'm asking me as writer to writer, because I've learned so much about myself as a writer that I didn't know, and a lot of it was just being brave enough to put my heart on the page, because that absolutely terrifies me. And I used to always try writing stories first on the computer, and I would just sit there terrified and have lots of excuses as to why I was not going to write on that day. But then, Katherine, and I'm going to pull them out. I just dropped them all. I went to only writing in notebooks. And I have just I have probably 40 of these that I have filled up in just the past year and a half. And my rule now is always, if I can't write it here first, I cannot move over to the computer. I always start here. And I go for every single, right now, the secret project I'm working on that you know about, it always has to be written here before I can write it in any way on a computer. So I'm curious to know, what are some of your idiosyncrasies when it comes to writing?
I was like that for a long time. I mean, there's nothing like pencil on paper. And we all get very obsessed about it being just the right pencil and just the right paper. I approve of your choice, because you need the hard back in case you're in the airport or something, so you can write, and you need the spiral so you can turn it all the way around as necessary. And are those blank pages?
They are. Yeah, they are.
And I like that too. I totally approve. In fact, I have something just like that in my travel bag. But I do write more on the laptop than I used to, and it took me a long time to get used to that. I think For me, the single biggest thing is sitting still and focusing and dealing with deadlines. And so I use, and it's lots of kids use it. And I know lots of procrastinators and ADD types use it. There's a thing called the Pomodoro Method. And basically you set a clock for, a 15-minute stretch or a 20-minute stretch. And, even if all you do is write a word, you sit there and write, and then you get up and you walk away for a few minutes, and then you come back. And it's the coming back that's hard. I've gotten so that it's something about that rhythm that it feels innate now. And of course, there are many times you're writing and you don't want to stop. But on those hard days, I find that kind of repetition is really helpful, because there are hard days. I don't think kids realize how frustrating writing can be sometimes,
No, it is. And everything you just, like, that question was selfishly for me, but I know everyone out there, it's going to speak to them in a different way. And for like, everything you just said is like what has helped me and has helped me feel more confident. So thank you for your wise advice. So Katherine, can you tell everyone just a little bit about other books written by you that have been mentioned? And how about we stick with Crenshaw and Wish Tree, and then we're going to go to Q&A from the audience. So can you just tell, I know it's Willowdean's book birthday, but I want all the children, especially out there who have not read these books yet, to hear about them. And I know from your book talks, they'll be inspired to read both of them if they haven't already. So Crenshaw first.
No, it's funny, you were holding them up and I went, oh yeah, more animals. It's funny because I think one of the things I think I write to kind of make sense of the world and to sort it out, and climate change, the frustration and angst that goes with that is one of the reasons I sat down to write Willowdean, because it's about a girl who makes a change. And with both Crenshaw, which is, it's about a boy with a very, very, very large imaginary friend. It was hugely inspired by the old movie Harvey. And that allowed me, especially when I was in Crenshaw, the Cat's Head, to look at humans a little bit differently. The same thing was true with Wish Tree, where I was talking about intolerance. The catalyst for Wish Tree was simply a story I'd read about a family in the Midwest, a Muslim family who'd moved into a house, and somebody put a big note on their door that said, "Go away." And I was outraged and frustrated and sad, and I wanted to talk about it. So I decided to use the POV of a 200-year-old red oak. And again, what it gave me was this outsider perspective, looking in at humans as a species with all our craziness and foibles. And there's a little bit of that in Willowdean too, in that there are two different POVs that kind of play their way through the story. And it allows me both to be in Willowdean's head, but also to think about how the creatures she's dealing with are looking at the world. And so I think for me, that's a really fun part of the writing process.
As you're talking, I'm thinking for the first time about how they're all connected, which is beautiful. So we are going to turn to questions from the audience, because I'm seeing a lot of chat, and I'm really curious to hear what people are thinking and wanting to know out there. And so I believe Alex is going to come back, or maybe Mary is coming back to help moderate the chat.
Hello. So Alex, first of all, John and Katherine, what a wonderful conversation. Alex is having some technical difficulties, so I am going to share our questions with you both tonight.
I can't see them right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna read them to you. So everyone, please keep the questions coming into the Q&A box, and I'll share them with John and Katherine. So the first question is from Coral, age 8, who says, "I love your books. Why do you write from animals' perspective?"
It's funny. When I was your age, I wanted to be a veterinarian so badly that when I was in high school, I worked for a vet. And I assisted in surgery. Mostly I picked up dog poop, but I did other stuff too. And I loved it. But mostly what fascinated me, what was going on inside their heads. I would look at my own pets, at my dog, and go, what are you thinking? And the only way I think I could really do that was to actually start writing stories from the point of view of animals. Right now, I'm working on a story about sea otters, and I'm going to the Monterey Bay Aquarium soon to spend some time with them. And it's such a fascinating thing to imagine what it's like to be another species. So I think that's why I do it.
Oh, that was a really good question.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Coral. We have another question from Laura Hook, who asks, Katherine, it seems you have such a love of nature. Where is your favorite spot in nature to go or visit? And John, I'd also love to know your answer to this.
Oh, I've lived all over the country, and there are so many places I adore for different reasons. Like, I grew up in Michigan, and you know, there's nothing worse sometimes than a snowy February day in Michigan, and yet I love it, and I miss not having it. Right now, strangely enough, my very favorite place is my own backyard, and I think you can find so much there when you look. One of the things that Willowdean touches on is biodiversity, and you can go to your school front yard or your own backyard and see so many different species interacting, you know, just trying to stay alive, trying to deal with the world complications as they come in, you know, the lawnmower and the fire over the hill and the strange weather. And I wanted to think about that a little bit with Willowdean. How about you, John?
Was the question specific? You cut out when you were asking the question, so I was trying to figure out the question based on Katherine's response. So was it specifically in nature?
Yes, your favorite spot in nature to go or to visit.
Yeah. So every day, if the weather permits, it's pouring here right now, I go on what I call a joy walk. And when I go on a joy walk, I try to disconnect from everything. And I try to open up my heart to the world and take in the energy of the world. And where I find I can do that best are in parks. Parks that are in rural areas, parks in urban areas. I love, love, love parks. And I'm currently writing a book about parks. So I'm really into them right now.
John, Joy Walk sounds like a picture book waiting.
Well, I don't know. That's what this notebook was. This is the Joy Walking book.
Oh, yay, Alex, you're back.
Story.
Okay. Handing it over to Alex. Also, I'm so glad that I called that right. I was like, that's not the picture.
Hi, Alex.
Hello, now on a completely different computer at a completely different angle. So let's see, to recap, you just answered.
Welcome back.
So we're on to Ellie Schwartz's question.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Ellie Schwartz, who lives near the bookstore, I believe.
Oh, yes, we know Ellie well. Hello. So Brian has a question about research. Katherine, what kind of research did you do when you were working on Willowdean?
Oh, so much. And you know, it's really fascinating. I kind of didn't realize how much material is available now for young readers, especially about the environment, about biodiversity, about climate change, and just endless resources. And so, you know, I always my go-to online is always National Geographic Kids. And I think it's such a wonderful place to start, no matter grown up or child. But I just delved in from all different angles, including, well, I think one of the hardest things about fictionalizing my environment, instead of using one of the many unfortunate eco-crises we have available to us, was that I had to knit together these invented species and create their own interdependence. And I wanted to be sure I was doing that in a way that made sense. I'm not a biologist, so that took a little bit of doing, but I love research. It's one of my favorite parts of writing.
And teachers will love for you to say that.
Partly it's because it's a great way to procrastinate, but mostly it's because I just love doing it.
Yeah, and you're totally right. There's some phenomenal stuff right now. The science comics series that covers so much different ground found to be it's been like a phenomenal way to intro people to.
I was actually looking at the science comics series again today for a project I'm working on, and I didn't realize how many there are now.
Yeah,
So
they cover
like
everything.
Oh,
it
it's
was like
amazing.
4 pages that I went through.
There are two, I wanted to, since we've got just a minute, we're talking about books, 2 books for, I would say, older high school readers and also the adults in the audience who are feeling environmental angst and want a little solace. One is just came out called Diary of a Young Naturalist by Dara McAnulty. It's fascinating. And the other is called All We Can Save. And it's a sort of compilation of essays and poems. And it just makes your heart happy and it makes you feel like there's hope. So if you're looking for a moment of solace, that's a good place to look.
The first book you mentioned is somewhere back there on my shelf, but I couldn't find it fast enough. Before we started, we said, I can always, like Mary Poppins, pull everything out. I couldn't find it though.
Yeah.
Anyway, I tried, Catherine, I tried.
It's very cool.
I have recovered Ellie's question, and Ellie's question was, Catherine, what was the hardest and the most joyful part of writing this book? And also thank you both for sharing your heart.
Aww. I'll tell you the truth. I was a little wary of writing a hopeful book about climate change. And I think you have to be brutally honest with kids. Obviously, when you're talking to a 6-year-old about climate change, that you're going to use different phrasing and data bits than you might with a 16-year-old, but you don't want to sugarcoat it. This is a huge existential problem we're facing. And so I wanted to do it in such a way that I wasn't glossing over the hard parts. And I love Willowdean. She reminds me a little bit of Greta Thunberg, the Swedish climate activist, mixed in with a hint of Jane Goodall. She loves to observe nature. And she's very quirky, very different, fiercely independent, lonely, feels isolated. But it's her ability to sit with nature and observe it that in what amounts to a very scientifically sound way that it leads her to understand what's going on in her own world. And that to me was a way to go at finding some honest hope.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. I think when you look at the big bads, it's hard to sort of parse it down into those valuable actions and persons and creatures that matter. Yeah, I think finding the personal is a good entry point for anyone.
Yeah.
And hope. We all need hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do. I think especially in children's books, don't you, John? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
It just...
Yeah, I left somebody in the chat that wrote hope in big letters. I mean, that's just Ivan. Ivan ends in a hopeful way.
It does. And I think you can go to those very dark places with kids. I mean, what did E.B. White say? Close to the fire. I mean, it's okay, but because a kid can just look out the window and know that we're dealing with really difficult issues right now. So it's important to give them concrete ideas for what they can do. One of the things that's really cool, and Susanna Richards, who's a children's lit professor, worked on the Educator's Guide for this, and many folks at Macmillan as well. And we created this Educator's Guide called Go Green with Willowdean, and it's full of resources. I mean, just so many that I hadn't even realized existed. And it's a really nice, concise way to go at showing kids what they can do. And my very favorite is this.
You have it there.
It's a piece of paper. It's stationary with Willowdean's Go Green with Willowdean on it. And the point is to teach kids that action starts with words, with writing your legislators, with, and writing scientists, and asking what you can do, and joining up with activists. And it's just such a concrete way to move forward. I think that's so important when you read a book.
And I love the title, and I naturally said, that's a really nice rhyme.
I take no credit.
Okay, memorable, I'll remember that. So
yes.
All the children. And Mary Van Aken just shared a link to download the digital copy.
Oh,
yeah, it's really amazing. and I love research. So I had expected to be familiar with more of these links, but oh my gosh, so much there to work with.
And I think it really surprises people sometimes when you're talking about, you know, a fantasy book and the amount of research work that goes into it. And I think it's very cool to get to hear a bit about the foundations that you're building your book on.
Yeah, world building, it's funny. You, if there's a crack in your foundation, boy, it shows up. It's usually about halfway through the book. And you go, whoops.
We have an anonymous question asking about Willowdean as a character, which says, Katherine, what made you write Willowdean a little different? I think kids will really appreciate her character if they feel outside too.
Oh, I hope so. I think that's why I loved her. I felt that way. Maybe we all feel that way sometimes. I think especially kids who are sensitive, sometimes kids who are writers, are outsiders, observers, and she's very much that person. I've had many reviewers say she reads like she's on the spectrum, and I think that's one possible interpretation, although it wasn't, you know, necessarily where I was going with it. She definitely feels like her internal clock doesn't quite mesh with everyone else's. And that awkwardness means that she really doesn't have any friends until she encounters this wonderfully artistic, kind boy named Connor. And their friendship blossoms as the story unfolds.
I have a question from Kendall, age 11, who says, your books are awesome. Are you writing another book right now?
Yeah.
Oh my, yes. Am I behind on a book right now? I am. Actually, the thing I'm working on right now is about sea otters. And I will be spending time soon at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, hanging out with surrogate sea otter moms. They're moms who can't be released into the ocean for various reasons, but they take in orphaned babies and raise them and teach them how to be otters, which I think is just fascinating. I'm also working on a sequel to The One and Only Ivan and The One and Only Bob. I don't really like sequels, but that particular group of characters I'm very fond of. And
wait, did you just say you're working on a third one?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, breaking news.
I hesitated because I realized, oh, am I supposed to say that?
That's why I was like, wait, did
well, Mary
really
in the chat said what?
That? But okay. And then I thought I misheard, and then it sunk in. Well, whoa. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to...
Well, now I'm probably in trouble. But
I have to show everyone the Ivan. This is my Ivan plush that lives here in my office. And the very first time I met Katherine Applegate in person at the Anderson's conference, Anderson's Bookshops conference. Yes, she presented this to me, and it is one of my most valuable possessions ever, and I love it so. So thank you, Katherine, for my exclusive, the one and only Ivan plush.
And he traveled to meet the actual Ivan, which is that very gorilla, didn't he?
He did, and he signed my book.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, I'm stepping back out. I got very, very excited.
And Katherine, you have a pretty neat piece of art behind you as well, don't you?
I'm so excited about my ownership of this invaluable artistic effort. As you can see, well, I'll pull that. It looks like maybe your 3-year-old sister was finger painting, but look at that blue thumbprint. This is an original Ivan, my friends. Wow. And I obtained it
real deal
via Ivan's Keeper, and I'm very, very honored to have it.
Can I show mine? I grabbed mine while you were showing yours.
Yes.
So here's my signature, Ivan's little green smudge. I can't quite get it on the camera, but when I talk about it during school visits, I tell kids that I keep it in a safety deposit box. It is actually, is actually here in my home.
Oh,
And here, since we're on Ivan, here's a photo of Ivan too.
Oh, yeah, he was fond of eating his paint. He was,
who among us is not really?
No, true enough. He would nose paint, he would elbow paint, he would, you name it, he painted with it. So yes, he was apparently quite a character. But yes, I'm very proud of my painting.
Yay. And I love that you sharing that exclusive news allowed us to go on.
And we have time for a couple more questions even. So especially if there are any kids in the audience, throw those questions up there because we'd love to answer those. Landon says, you said your very favorite book is Charlotte's Web and you wanted to be a veterinarian. And I'm reminded a lot of Cassie from Animorph saying it was her favorite book as well. How much of yourself do you put into your characters?
Oh, an Animorphs fan. I love that. I was definitely, I would have liked to have been Rachel. Rachel was incredibly tough in the Animorphs series, but I was Cassie, really. Cassie was kind of gentle-souled. She loved animals, and her parents were vets, and it's where it came from. I think we always have little bits of ourselves in every character, and often, people we love, people we hate. It's this weird admixture. It's a recipe you can't quite quantify. But for me, I think it's hard not to write a little bit of yourself into every character.
Mm-hmm. And may I give a plug for your next Animorphs, the graphic novel adaptation?
Yes.
I just happen to have here the visitor, Chris Grine, coming out, I believe, in October.
I got to give huge props to Chris Grine because he's really, really doing the hard work on that. He's taking the original stories and adapting them and then just doing these incredible illustrations. It's really Chris who's doing the work. So I'm thrilled.
Oh, it is so exciting to see those books get new life for your newer generations of fans. It's like a whole new side, and it's such a beautiful presentation of those stories. So if you haven't checked them out, you certainly should.
It's funny because I tell the story all the time, but it's a reminder to myself that I am getting older. I will have Animorphs fans come up to me and they will have babies, and the babies will be named after Animorphs characters, and it's like, how did that happen?
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, I think when you say like in my century, it really is in my century at this point. We're 21 years into the next one.
I know.
So I apologize. I may be missing a couple questions because of my tech glitches. So the last question that I have up here is from Marcy for both of you, which is about different roles. John and Katherine, what's it like to go from being a book cheerleader to sort of a producer of books, or in the opposite direction?
Let's hear it, John.
Yeah, no. Well, I feel like I haven't gotten to experience that yet. So I'll tell you when The Gift of Story comes out. And then I have a picture book called This is a School that's coming out on March 29th. So I'll be able to, and Marcy, I know we're connected, Marcy from Colorado. So I'll be able to answer that question better in 2022.
Yet to come.
Oh, I cannot wait to see both of those on the shelves.
And now, Katherine, she asked both of us the question, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure. Can you repeat it as it applies to me? I am a book cheerleader, but John, come on, he's the head cheerleader of all time.
No, but you are as well. You are so, and Katherine, this is actually a question I didn't ask that I wrote you yesterday. I was going to ask, is that you are such an amazing supporter of your colleagues. And when you love a book, you lift it up. And when you love a book, you tweet about it. And not everyone does that. And so I do think it does. I will say it applies to you because I think you're one of the biggest cheerleaders when it comes to other people's books. And I find that there are certain authors who would rather talk about other people's books than their own. And I'm not saying you fall into that, but I think You're very comfortable talking about other people's stories, which is such a gift.
It's funny, when speaking of, I have my huge to be read pile here. I was just thinking when you said that, this is Gary Schmidt's latest book, just like that. It's so heartbreaking, but so beautiful. And when I would call it starting out, although I'd probably written about 75 books by then. It was my first real book. And in some ways, when I wrote, The One and Only Ivan, I somehow encountered Gary and I wrote him a note and said, could you read this and just, let me know what you think and maybe, give me a blurb. And he wrote the most exquisite kind blurb. And that kind of thing, I think is really true of children's authors, especially. I think we do all support each other. We're all, it's a tough gig sometimes. It's a fantastic, amazing gig, but
that it's not a competition. Like it's not a competition between people.
No, not like I think that may happen a little more in adult books. In fact, I'm pretty sure it does. But no, I mean, kid book authors and illustrators, they're really cool people. They're mellow, and I mean, maybe that's because they write for kids or why they write for kids. But yeah, that kind of support is invaluable, and I try to blurb whenever I can because it seems like the least I can do because I've been so lucky.
I love I got you to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
That's your special superpower, John.
My specialty. Oh, so Alex, we're gonna do you want to ask the last question? And then I'm gonna ask Katherine to finish a sentence because I love when Katherine finishes my sentences.
Well, we did get a couple more, but I know we're running low on time. So if you want to close out with your question, I know you had something to ask.
No, I want you to be able to. Did you have one?
Well, I really like both of these.
Okay.
Oh gosh, if I had to ask a question, I have too many to count, I think. Let's just blend these together.
Yeah, okay. Because I want everyone to be able to.
Yeah, what made you want to write children's books? And out of all the books you've written, do you have a favorite character? The most difficult question of all.
Oh, no. No, that's like asking your favorite kid. You never ask that. I think some people write symphonies and some people write chamber music. There's just a place where you feel right. And I feel right in children's books, and most especially in middle grade. It's where I want to be. And when I'm writing, especially a middle grade novel, I just feel so happy. The length is right. And the subject matter is endless. I mean, you can write anything for kids in that age group because they're willing to read anything. And, they're the best audience on the planet. So you can't go wrong. Favorite character. Wow. I'm going to say Bob the dog. I love Bob the dog.
That's
Bob
a good choice.
He's grumpy and cynical and funny and just I love dogs, so maybe.
And I do hear Danny DeVito's voice though. I do hear Danny DeVito's voice now.
Always, yeah.
So can I ask my last question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, I will say another happy book birthday to Willowdean. I hope everyone will buy a copy from Brookline as well as other books. Please, please, please support tonight's independent bookstore that has done such a good job putting this all together. And let's give them all Katherine went in for the round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've never been to your physical bookstore, but I look forward to visiting one day in the near future, hopefully. So Katherine, we're going to end with you finishing a sentence starter. You have finished many of my sentences over the years. And the sentence is, it's one I know that we've talked about before, but it's story is. So finish the sentence starter, story is, ...
Oh. Yeah, you could pick an easy one, could you, John?
Oh, I'm sorry.
is permission for us to be someone else for a while. And I think sometimes we need that. We need our brains and our hearts and our souls to just take a rest. And when you do that, you develop empathy and kindness, and you look at the world in a whole different way.
See, I knew you'd have the perfect response. And if I were in the audience, I would have just tweeted everything that you said. So thank you, Katherine, and thank you, Alex, and thank you, Brookline, for this wonderful celebration of this really beautiful and important story.
Absolutely. And I think my finishing thought as a fan and as a bookseller is what you were saying about writing for middle graders and how they'll read anything, is that really special middle grade books come from authors who think that their readers are capable of reading anything. And I think we see that in all of your books, where you never shy away from difficult things, and you still put so much love into your stories. And that combination and pairing that with respect for the kids who are reading your stuff is exactly why everybody in this room is here and shares your books far and wide. So thank you so much for this new book. And thank both of you very, very much for being here tonight.
Oh, thank you, Alex.
Thank you,
John. You guys are amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Bye,
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Katherine.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.